Hello everyone here at freeCodeCamp. I hope you are ready for this video. It's going to be a super exciting one that personally I have been looking forward to sharing with you for a long time. It's exciting for two reasons. One, I'm going to be introducing to you a new technology that makes creating games super easy, allowing us to spin up games like this in minutes. Two, I'm going to be using this technology to show you how to create some classic games such as Mario, Zelda, and Space Invaders step by step so that you can have your own game to take, improve on, share with your friends, barista, yoga instructor, whoever you wish. So, before we get to that, let's start with reason number one, the new technology. For those of you who haven't heard of me, my name is Anya Kubo and I'm a software developer and course creator on YouTube who loves to teach through building games. And this specific technology is built exactly for that. We are going to be learning how to use Kaboom.js. Kaboom.js is a JavaScript library that helps you make games fast. We are going to be using this library to simplify creating scenes, adding layers, creating sprites directly in the project or importing them based on your preference, dealing with actions and collisions, adding key events, debugging, and so much more. This simplicity allows us to enter the world of game development at a low barrier of entry and gets us coding without being disheartened due to pages and pages of documentation, which is common in the game development process we see today. The ability to spin up games so quickly is something that the folks at Replit, the collaborative browser-based IDE, have been passionate about developing for quite some time. They wanted the end product to empower everyone from kids to beginner devs, as well as intermediate programmers, to start creating games with as small a learning curve as possible. Great! Now that we have learnt a little bit about Kaboom.js, let's get to using it. In the next section, I'm going to go over the basic concepts of Kaboom.js. I'm going to show you how to import Kaboom.js and get it up and running, initialize the project, start the game, add a scene, create some sprites, as well as show you all the other things we can do with it. Once we have the basics, we will be using this knowledge to create our 3 games, as well as learn more things along the way. If you do need to refer to a section of the video after we have learnt a concept, please refer to the timestamps in the description of this video. Each timestamp will take you directly to the section annotated next to it. Now, I do advise that you not skip ahead of some sections of this course as the chapters are done in such a way that will build on the knowledge you gain throughout. The only prerequisite I ask of you is to have a basic understanding of the fundamentals of JavaScript before starting this course. But if you're feeling adventurous, please do have a go of following along anyway. Like I said, this library is intended to make JavaScript coding a whole bunch easier by providing a layer of shortcuts, if you will, to create games. I, for one, am super excited about what you all end up building with this JavaScript library, so please do share your final games with me and with us on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you wish. Okay, so what are we waiting for? Let's do this. Okay, so first things first. In this section, I'm going to show you some of the basics into getting started with Kaboom.js. Here are all the functions and methods to your disposal in the Kaboom.js library. I will be covering the core concepts, so all the ones in red, in this section. The others we will learn along the way while coding our games. By the end, you should have a firm understanding of Kaboom and what you can create with it. Okay, so to start things off, I'm actually going to start off on the Kaboom.js website. I'm starting off here because it has all the documentation that you're going to need to refer to after this course. So if you do get stuck or perhaps you just want to do some extra reading, this is the place to go to. Now, to get started, I'm going to actually utilize the Kaboom environment on Replit, which has been pre-made for us and configured in order to get going a lot faster. So I'm just going to gravitate toward there now. I'm going to click here on Kaboom environment on Replit, and I'm just going to sign up. Now, please take your time signing up here. I'm just going to click on the Gmail sign and it's going to take me straight to my dashboard. Fantastic. So here you will see some REPLs that I've already made. However, I'm going to show you how to make one from scratch. All you need to do, and you can use all different languages as well, but however, so I'm just going to click here. As this is a Kaboom.js tutorial, we are of course going to choose Kaboom. So I'm just going to click now and you will see a lovely random name has been generated for my project. Now feel free to change this if you wish. I quite like it, so I'm just going to keep it and click create REPL. And there we are. Our Kaboom environment is now loaded. So as I said, this has been already configured for us. The only thing I'm going to ask you to do is click here and check that you are on version 5. If you are not and there is a newer version out there, then don't worry, feel free to code along. However, if you do find that something is not working quite as you would expect, then make sure to change it to version 5 and refer to the documentation to see what has changed since this tutorial. Great. Now, I just want to cover the basics. These basics are going to be things that we're going to use throughout all 3 tutorials, which is why I think it's great to cover them now together. The first thing I'm going to show you how to do is add a sprite. So let's do it. To add a sprite in Replit, we have this really cool feature that will allow us to actually create a sprite in the platform itself. This is great as we don't have to rely on a third-party service such as a pixel maker or just sort of an editing software for images. We can make everything right here. So to do this, I'm just going to click here and what shall we call our sprite? I'm just going to call him or her player and put width and height of 40. So now I'm just going to create my player. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. Let's make them purple. And then I'm just going to make a little alien because I think that's quite fun. So here's my little alien. There we go. He looks a little bit like Monster Munch, if you know those crisps. So there we go. There's my alien. I'm going to do some little eyes. There they are. Great. So now if I click main, and I am simply going to use the Kaboom method of add, open up some parentheses, open up an array, and I am simply going to use another Kaboom method called sprite, and I'm going to pass the string of whatever I called my sprite. So I'm just going to go like that and click run. And there we go. We have added our sprite to our game board. That was pretty easy and pretty painless. We can do a lot of other things too. So if I think my sprite is too big, I can scale them by 0.5 and click run. So there we go, they are now half the size. I can also use position, so I can position my sprite, and the first value is going to be the x-axis, and the second is going to be the y-axis, all stemming from this point right here. So if I put 2020, well, our sprite is going to appear right there, because I've applied 20 pixels to the left and 20 pixels from the top. So, pretty painless, let's carry on. The next thing I'm going to show you how to do is add a level. So to do this, I'm going to use another Kaboom method called add level, making sure that it's camel case. I'm going to open up a parenthesis and open up our braces, square brackets. So the first argument is going to be our map, and the second argument is going to be an object, which is going to be our config for our game. So let's start off with the map first. I'm simply going to draw out what I want my map to look like using quote marks. So there we go. I'm just going to use the quote marks like so. I don't know how many we want, but let's just have this many. And then I'm going to make X's for the ground. So make sure that it's in the quote marks. Now we need our config. Let's also put something here. Okay, so there we go. Now we need our config. So the width and the height are going to be the width and the height of every one of these little objects here. So I'm going to put 40 and height 40 as well, just to be the same as these sprites. And now I need to define what all these objects are. So I'm going to grab the X, and this is the syntax. I'm going to open up my square brackets, and this X is going to be the sprite of, and then let's make a ground sprite. So once again, width and height 40, I'm going to create, and then let's make our ground. So my ground is going to be, I can even add more colors if I wish, but I'm pretty happy with these. There we go. So we made our ground. So now I'm going to use ground. So once again, I'm just going to use the string of ground and click run. And there we go. We have added our ground. This is looking great. The next thing I want to do, now I think we should apply gravity to the sprite. So I could do so easily by using body like so and clicking run. And there he goes. He falls with gravity. We have just applied gravity to the sprite. But obviously we don't want him to fall through. We want him to fall on the ground, right? That makes sense. So I can now assign the component solid to the ground, just like so. And he stops. Now, let's add an enemy. So I've decided that I want anything with the @ sign to be an enemy. So let's grab the enemy. And then I'm going to use, so we're going to have to make another sprite that's going to be the enemy. I'm not quite sure what enemy we're going to have. So I'm just going to create a little enemy. I'm not sure what an enemy looks like, so I'm just going to create something. Of course, feel free to take your time with this. I'm just going to create a little bumblebee thing because, you know, for some reason, I think bumblebees are now enemies. Don't be deceived by their cute little looks. And let's give it a little face. So there we go, there's my little enemy. Now, so I'm going to use enemy like so and click run. So we've added our enemy. I can have as many enemies as I wish on the board. So I'm just going to click run again. And there you go. So I don't actually want that many. Let's just keep one for this tutorial. And perhaps let's scale them down. So I can apply scale here too. So scale 0.5. Brilliant. Okay, so we've added our sprite, we've created our game board. The next thing I want to show you is how to move our little sprite across the board. So to do this, I'm going to have to assign this to something so I can keep reusing it in our code. So let's perhaps assign this to const player. Now, using key down, I'm going to pass through right, and then pass through what I want to happen if I press the right arrow on our keyboard. So what I want to happen, I'm just going to write a function. So when we press right, this is going to happen, this function is going to be called. So what I want to happen is I want to grab the player, I want to use the Kaboom method of move, and once again, just like with position, I'm going to pass through an X and a Y axis. Let's save this as move speed. Let's make it 200. So we can reuse this in our code. So I want this to be the x-axis, and I don't want our sprite to move up or down. I only want him to move left or right. So that is what I've done here by passing a value to the x-axis of 200 and 0 to the y-axis. So now if we run this, and I'm just going to press the right button, there it goes. And there it goes. So now I can actually copy this and do the left. And for left, I simply need to put a minus so that it goes the other way on the x-axis. So now, there we go. Our sprite is moving left and right. I can also use key press. The choice is totally up to you. Now, We've covered how to make a sprite. We've covered how to add the level. We've covered how to move our sprite. I'm going to show you one last thing before we move on, and that is what happens when two things collide. So I'm going to do that down here. I'm going to grab our player, and if he collides, so this is another Kaboom method, with anything with the tag of dangerous. So I'm just going to add the dangerous tag. Let's make this perhaps a little bit bigger. Dangerous tag to our enemy. So we can reuse this tag. We can put this to a lot of different sprites, but I'm just going to give it to the enemy for now. So if our player collides with anything with the tag dangerous, well, what do I want to happen? Let's pass through a function. I want our player to be destroyed. So let's do that now. Let's also perhaps add gravity to the enemy. And if our player collides with anything with the tag of dangerous, well, I want to destroy it. So I'm going to use the method of destroy and just pass through our player. So let's run that now. Both of them fall. I crash into the ferry and I disappear. My little sprite gets destroyed. Great, so we have definitely covered all the basics that we need to get started on our tutorials. Please feel free to have a pause here and have a play around in your Replit Kaboom environment before we get going, just to feel a little bit more comfortable about doing stuff for yourself. Okay? So once you are ready, I think it is fine for us to carry on. Let's do it. Let's start off with Space Invaders first. Okay, so let's do it. Let's build Space Invaders, once again using the Kaboom.js environment in Replit. So I'm just going to start off with making another REPL. So once again, I'm just going to click here, and I'm just going to click on Kaboom. And once again, a random name is generated for me. Feel free to change it if you wish, or keep it. The choice is up to you. And I'm just going to click Create REPL. Great. So now we are here, let's get going. The first thing I'm going to do is actually start by perhaps creating our map. So just like we did in the intro, I'm going to use the Kaboom method of add level, and I'm just going to open up an array for our map and an object for our config. So now in here, let's start creating our map. So I'm just going to put a few of these. So I think let's have a left wall, and then let's have some Space Invaders. So I'm just going to decide that I want the little hat to be a Space Invader. So I'm just going to put a few of these. Let's have 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Or perhaps more. What do you think? Let's put a few. The choice is totally up to us. And then some spaces, and then I'm going to have an and sign, or ampersand, for the right wall, because we need to tell our code what is going to be the left wall and the right wall for collisions. I'm just going to have 3 rows of these Space Invaders, and the rest is just going to be a left wall and a right wall. So just like so, I'm going to have a few of these because it's going to be quite a big board for us. So we have a lot of space to play around with. Okay. Now let's do our config. So I'm going to decide that I want each of the elements on my board to, let's say, have a width of, let's say 30, and I'm going to make the height 20 or so, or 22. And then I'm going to define what everything is on my board. So perhaps let's create the sprites first, because we need a Space Invader like so. And let's make it width 30, height 22, and click create. So now I'm just going to create my little Space Invader guy. Once again, like, please feel free to make your Space Invader look however you wish. this is how I've chosen to make mine. Of course, the choice is completely up to you. So similar to like we did before, but here's my little Space Invader. Just going to give him some little eyes. And great. So I'm happy with that. Now I'm also going to create a left wall. So perhaps let's just use wall for this because we can reuse it. And width 30, height 22, and click create. And for this, I'm just going to color it black. Fantastic. So now let's go to adding our sprites. So I've decided that I want these little hats to be our Space Invader. So this is the syntax. I open up an array and I'm going to use the Kaboom method of sprite to then find the Space Invader. So I need to get the Space Invader by using the string of whatever it's called. And then, so that is the first one. And then let's also make a, so we decided this we want to be a left wall. Well, I can reuse the sprite for wall. So I'm just going to open up an array and use sprite and then pass through wall like so. Even though I don't know why wall. So we have our wall. I'm actually going to give this the tag of left wall just so we can use it in our project. So left wall. And then I'm going to copy this. And then this time I'm going to use the ampersand, and this is going to be the right wall. So just like so. Now if I run this, there we go. So there are our little Space Invaders. There are our walls. I can, maybe let's scale this down a little bit, or perhaps maybe let's just get rid of that because we don't really need it, and click run. So yeah, perhaps let's scale everything down. I'm going to scale everything down just up here. Now I can actually change the scale of this whole game board by going to Kaboom and scaling it down to just 1, because at the moment we are double the size, and clicking run. Okay, so there we go. I think that is looking a lot better. And we can see our whole board. Fantastic. The next thing we're going to do is add our player. So const player. And then using the add method again, so just like we did in the intro, I am going to add the player. So this is going to be a sprite that is going to be a space ship. Now let's go ahead and create our little spaceship. So once again, I'm just going to click spaceship and create it with a width of 30 and a height of 22, and click create. Now, how should we make our spaceship? Let's make it orange. And I'm just going to make it look a little bit like so. Please feel free to, of course, make this however you wish, but I'm happy with that. So now, oops, I've got my spaceship. Just going to get rid of this again. I'm actually going to give it a position. So I want to position it in the middle of my screen. So I'm going to use width divided by 2 and height also divided by 2, just like that. And then origin, the string center, and click run. Okay, so now my little player is in the center. I also might want to scale it up if I wish. I don't think I do at the moment. I do, however, want to scale my invaders because I don't want them to take up the whole square. So I'm just going to do scale 0.7 like so, and click run. Great. So now they are appearing a little bit smaller. The next thing I want to do is actually assign keystrokes to my player. So I'm going to do key down So this is to make our player move left. And if I click left, well, what do I want to happen? Let's put a function and find out. If I press left, I want to grab the player, I want to move it, and then let's have the move speed. So const move speed, and let's say that is 200. So now I can use the move speed and put 0, and because we're moving left, this needs to be a negative. And let's do the same for moving right. So I'm just going to replace this with right, and then not make this negative. So let's check that out. If I move or press my little keys, there we go. Our player is moving left and right. This is pretty cool. Now, the next thing I want to do is add a score. So I'm going to do this. The first thing I'm going to do, actually perhaps let's move our constant to the top of the file. I'm just going to paste it in here. And I'm going to get layers. So in my layers, let's open up our array. I'm going to have the object layer for where all my objects are, a UI layer where I can store the score without it affecting everything on my board. And then I'm just going to make the default the object layer. So if it's not sure, that is the default layer. Great. So now that we have that, let's add our score. Down here, I'm going to say const score. I'm going to use the add method, so the Kaboom method, to add. This time I'm going to add the text. So I'm going to start off with 0 and then position, and I'm going to just put in 50-50 to position the score. And then if we want, we can scale it up, but let's just see how it looks. I'm going to put it on the UI layer. So that is how we will put it on the UI layer. And finally, I'm just going to have an object of where the score value is going to be. And we're going to start off with 0. So just like that. So now if I run this, we get our score. You can sort of see it. It's a bit small. I might actually scale this up. So scale by 3 just to show you where it is. Okay. So now it's a lot bigger. You don't have to keep it the size. You can also move it if you wish. So we've got our score. The next thing I want to do is perhaps let's start moving the invaders before we start doing anything else. So like adding a timer, or let's add the timer. Okay. So const timer equals, and once again I'm going to open up an array. I'm also going to start with text being 0, and then let's position it. So I'm just going to position it below the text, the score text. Let's make it scale just by 2 this time. And again, I need to add this to the UI layer, and I'm going to put the and let's have an object that has the time, which is the time left. So const time left, let's say we want, I don't know, 14 seconds for now. So I'm just going to put it 14. We can, of course, always change it. So there we have that. Let's click run. So that is our score, and that is our time left. Let's actually make our timer move down in time now. So I'm going to grab the timer. I'm going to use action. So that is another Kaboom method. And action essentially runs every, I'm just going to show you the documentation. And action actually gets called every frame. So, okay, just keep that in mind. I want the timer to, so let's get up our curly braces. Let's grab the timer's time, so this right here, and I'm just going to make it decrement by delta time. This is delta time since last frame. So just remember that. And now I want the timer text to be the timer's time. This is meant to be delta time. Click run. So now it's counting down from 14. As we said, we want it to be from 14 seconds. Let's perhaps shorten it because it's too many points after that I need. So I'm just going to fix that to a fixed length. So 2 fixed 2. There we go. So that is looking pretty cool. That is our timer. And of course we need to write what happens when we run out of time. So if the timer time is suddenly smaller than or equal to 0, well, what do we want to happen? We want to lose. So we're going to write a lose scene in a bit, or we can write it now, sure, why not? Go to this is how you go to another scene, go to a lose scene and take the score with you, so score value. So let's go ahead and write our lose scene. So in here, we are in the main scene. I'm going to add a lose scene, just like so. And my lose scene is simply going to be, so I'm just going to use add, and I'm going to add the text of the args. So args is anything that we pass through into this scene, args score. So we're going to add the score as text, and we're going to, let's also position this origin center. Let's make it really big. Let's make it scale 10. And then let's put the position. Let's also grab the width of the screen divided by 2 and grab the height of the screen and divide it by 2. Cool. So that is, oops, really it. So now I'm just going to make the time a lot shorter because I don't really want to wait around for that long. So great. So we do need to fix this. However, I am going to just carry on because we're not actually adding anything to the score quite yet. Nothing's happening with the score. So we'll go back to this in a bit. So I'm just going to leave this as 100 for now while we continue coding. Okay, so it's just going to keep running from 100. Just ignore it for now. So we have that. Perhaps actually, that's quite distracting. I'm just going to comment that out. So there we go. Don't forget to uncomment that out later. But for now, I'm just going to keep it like so. And then comment this out too. Okay, great. Now let's get our Space Invaders moving left and right. I think, yeah, I think that'll be fun. Let's do it. So I am going to use, for this, I'm going to use action. So that's another Kaboom method. And I'm going to grab anything with the tag Space Invaders. So just make sure that the Space Invader has that tag, which it doesn't. Let's go ahead and add that tag here. So I'm just going to put the tag of Space Invader. So anything with the tag Space Invader, well, I'm going to pass through S for the Space Invader into my function because I want the Space Invader to move at a speed. Okay, so what shall we make the speed? Const space, well, let's just go invader speed. It's fine. And let's just make it 200 for now. So I want it to move on the x-axis with invader speed. So let's do it. Let's see our Space Invaders move. Okay, so they're moving really fast. Maybe let's make it 100, but they're moving off the board. So this is why I wanted to have a left and right wall, because I need to write a collides function. So I'm going to do so like this. I'm going to get collides, and if anything with the tag Space Invader collides with anything with the left wall, or let's start with the right wall first maybe. The tag right wall, well, what do I want to happen? Well, let's get a function and find out. I want to change the speed of the invader speed. So I'm going to get const current speed. And for now, let's have current speed as the invader speed. So I can just use current speed here. And if there is a collision, well, what do I want to happen? I want to get the current speed and I want to change it to negative invader speed. Okay, so I'm going to change the speed and now I'm going to use every, and for every space invader, so I'm going to grab all the space invaders and I'm going to, so not only change the direction, I want them to move down. So I'm just going to pass through object. We can call this S for Space Invader again if you feel more comfortable, so we could do that. For every Space Invader, well, I want this Space Invader to move down. So this time I need to affect the Y-axis, and I'm just going to do level down. So let's define level down, const level down, and let's say 50. So let's check it out. Yes, of course this will change, so we need to make this a let. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, great. So now we just need to do the other side. Perhaps let's make them move down more by 100. And I'm just going to copy this and I'm just going to paste it and change it that if they collide with the left wall, well, I just want the Space Invader speed to be not negative anymore, but I still want each of them to move down. So let's try that. Okay, great. Fantastic. I still think this should perhaps be bigger. So let's try that again. But it's totally up to you. Okay, you can make this as hard or as easy as you wish. I'm just going to increase the broad size here because I think it needs to be a bit longer to make sure that our spaceship fits in it. So there we go, that's better. Fantastic. So we've got our little invaders moving down. The next thing I want to do is start spawning bullets. So let's do that now. Actually, perhaps let's write what happens when the player collides with the Space Invader. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm just going to refresh. If the player overlaps with a Space Invader, well, once again, what do I want to happen? Well, I want to go to the lose scene. So once again, I'm going to go to the lose scene, just like so. And I'm going to pass through whatever the score is, score value. Value. Okay, so that should work. And also if the action, if the Space Invaders suddenly go too low, so just in case they miss my spaceship, Space Invader, what do I want to happen? Well, I'm going to grab the Space Invader. So if they suddenly get like below a certain, so obviously they've just gone off because there's no wall. If they get to around here, I want them to, I want us to go to the loose scene as well. So if the Space Invaders position Y is suddenly larger than the, or equal to than the height itself. So you could do it so it's the whole way, or you could do height divided by 2. It's totally up to you. That looks like halfway to me, just about. Then we want to, again, just go to the lose scene. Fantastic. So let's run that and let's see how we do. So while that is happening, I'm just going to carry on because I want to spawn some bullets. So perhaps let's just move this to the top of the file as well, just to keep everything neat. Okay, so we've done all this. Time to spawn some bullets. Okay, great. So we are getting a massive score show up. We've got 0 score. That is looking good. As soon as we collide with the spaceship, we go to the losing scene. So let's see, it's because I was passing this through incorrectly. So that should be it. Now let's spawn some bullets. So once again, where we have this here, I'm going to do key press, because if we press a key, so I'm going to do, if we press the space bar, I want to spawn a bullet. So I'm going to write a function called spawn bullet for this. I'm just going to do it up here, function spawn bullet, like so. I'm going to pass through the position of the player, so P for player, and I'm just going to add a rectangle. So I could do so by using rect, so that is another Kaboom method, and I'm going to make the rectangle that big, and then I'm going to position it to wherever the player is, and then origin, center. Let's give it a color, so color 0.5, 0.5, 1. Just going to space this out so it's more readable for everyone. And I'm also going to give it the tag of bullet for later, because we need to know if we collide with the bullet. So there we go, that's the function spawn bullet. And if I press key space, well, I'm going to use that, and I'm going to pass through whatever the player's position is at the time. So player position. And I'm just going to, well, let's do this for now. We need to do add, actually. We need to add the position. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, so there we go. We are spawning a bullet. Now, if I want to make that a little bit higher, I could do something like this. See? And now the bullet is being spawned a little bit higher than me. Cool. Now let's get the bullets to move, right? So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to use action, so just like that, to pass through anything with the tag of bullet. So anything with the tag of bullet, that's why we gave the bullet a tag. And B for bullet is what I'm going to pass through into the function. Now, I'm going to move the bullet, so grab B and then use the Kaboom method of move. I'm going to move it minus, and then we need a bullet speed. So this is the y-axis, bullet speed. Let's make it 400. Okay, so I'm going to grab the bullet speed. I'm going to put a minus, so it goes up on our board, because remember, x-axis, y-axis. Now, if I'm just going to destroy the bullet once it's out of the scene, okay? Just for performance issues, in case it has any performance issues. So I'm going to grab, if the bullet's position, y position, is suddenly smaller than 0, well then I want to destroy the bullet, okay? Great. So let's try that. Oh, amazing. Whee! And now let's actually write something for the collision. So collides, and I'm going to grab the bullet, and I'm also going to grab anything with the tag of Space Invader. And then let's pass through a B and an S, one for bullet and one for Space Invader. And what do I want to happen? Well, I want to destroy the bullet. I also want to destroy the Space Invader. And I also want to add one to the score. So score value plus plus, just use the increment operator. And let's actually show the score value in the text, because we hard coded it as a 0, string 0 before. I can also add a cam shake. So I'm just going to do that now. Let's shake the camera. Cam shake. And let's run it. So now, boo, cam shake. Cam shake. Boo, boo, boo. How fun is that? Amazing. Awesome. The score text is not updating though. Why is that? Score value, right? Sorry. The score value needs to be the score text. Whee! Okay, how fun is that? We can of course make the game harder or easier, just do it however you wish. You can add more Space Invaders too. It is completely up to you. So now let's uncomment the timer as well. I'm just going to move the constants to the top just because I think that is best practice. And then, did we have another one? Bullet speed. And then, of course, please feel free to tidy this up too. I think that is looking okay there. And click run. Great. Let's make the time left maybe 30. So like I said, you can do this by time. You can do it however you wish. You can add more Space Invaders. You can slow down the bullet speed. You can do so much. It really is up to you. Let's actually move that timer out a little bit because I think so yeah, the x-axis, I think I said y before. The x-axis, let's make it 100. Okay, great. Boo, boo. Now I'm going to do one last thing before we go, and I'm just going to change the background to be black. So I don't want a clear color, I want a black background. To run. Okay, and there we have it. We have now finished our game. It looks really fun. Like I say, this is just the basics to get you going. We've covered all the functionality that you need, but it is up to you to really make this game your own. Take it to the next level, you know, add another level if you want, add more Space Invaders. Of course, add more scenes if you wish. There really is so much you can do with this game. Let's just check that the lose works. And it does. We get the score showing up if our Space Invader collides with our spaceship. So that is it. One thing that I would suggest is perhaps add a winning scene. So if you shoot all the invaders, that's something you can do. I've already mentioned adding new levels. That is something we're going to cover in the next tutorial. So if you want to learn how to add more levels, please stick around. Mario up next. Okay, so well done creating Space Invaders. Now it's time to move on to creating Mario, again in the Kaboom Replit environment. As you can see, I'm already in my Replit Kaboom environment. If you have skipped ahead to this section, I would recommend watching the basics section in order to understand how to get to this point. Once again, I'm just going to check that I am on Kaboom version 5. If you are on a later version of Kaboom currently, then please do refer to the documentation if you feel something isn't working quite right to see what has been updated since. Okay, so great. I'm actually just going to start off with our scale being 1 and let's do it. The first thing that I'm going to do is actually load up my sprites. So in Space Invaders, we drew the sprites. This time I'm going to upload the sprites. So I can do so in the Kaboom Replit environment quite easily just by this button right here. So as you can see, I've already created all my sprites. The next thing I'm just going to do is click them to upload them like so. So there we have our block. You can see the name of the file is exactly what our environment calls our sprite. I can then do a blue brick. So just like so. Our blue evil shroom. Some blue steel. And then a blue surprise. A brick. A coin. An evil shroom 1. I'm not going to have evil shroom 2. Let's have Mario standing. A mushroom. A pipe left. A pipe right. A pipe top left. and a pipe top right side, so we don't need all of them. And then a question box, and then an unboxed box. So hopefully that should be it. This is looking good. The first thing I'm going to do is add my map. So let's do it. I'm simply going to write const map like so, open up an array, so just like we did in Space Invaders, and I'm just going to draw my map how I envision it for Mario. So I think that should be okay. Please make sure to keep everything in the quotation marks for this to work. So I'm just going to keep pasting, just like so. Okay, and then I'm going to create a ground. I'm not sure which ones I want to use for the ground, but I'm just going to put the equal signs as a ground for me for now on, and then perhaps some spaces too. So there we go. That is looking good. The next thing I want to do is decide where everything else goes on my little map. So I'm going to have some pipes here. Once again, I am using symbols, which I'm going to assign values to in a bit. So there is my pipes. I'm also going to have some mushrooms. So what should I use for the evil shroom? Sorry, let's use these little things. And then I'm going to have, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 up here. Let's have a coin surprise, and then perhaps some more bricks. So let's do a brick and then another surprise. This time, let's say it's a mushroom surprise, another brick, and then a coin surprise and another brick. So that is looking good. I do think we perhaps need to make this a little bit wider. So I'm just going to add some length to our grid. Okay, so just like that. You can feel free to make this as big or as small as you wish. That is all the fun. Okay, so we have our map. Let's carry on. Now to add this map, I'm going to use a Kaboom method called add level, which takes two things. The first is an array, which is our map, and the second is an object, that is our level config. So we already have our map, so I could just pass through that array like so, and then let's do our level config. So I'm actually going to define our level config up here. Let's call it const level config. We can call it whatever we wish. In camel case, I have chosen to do this, and we know that it's an object. So now I could just replace this with that, just like we did with the map. Now that we have our level config, we need to do a few things. I need to define how big and how small, how wide and how high I want each of these elements on my board. I'm going to say I want each of them to be 20 by 20 pixels. Now let's start defining things. So I'm going to use this because I already know that this is a block. So this is the syntax for defining what the elements are. I'm going to open up my square brackets. I'm going to use sprite just like that. And I'm going to pass through the block as that's what I want here. So that is going to be my block. Let's carry on defining some more things while we are at it. So we've got our block. I'm going to say that anything with a $sign is going to be a coin. Anything, let's carry on. So we've got that. We also want to have a surprise. So this is I'm going to use the sprite of surprise. So here we have the surprise. Ooh. Do we have the surprise? The question is the surprise. So that is what we have. I can actually should probably even call this question and not surprise. So question, just like so. And I'm going to actually say that anything with this sign specifically is going to be a coin surprise. Okay, so we've got that, and anything, I'm just going to copy this because I still want to use the same sprite. However, anything with this sign now, I want to be a mushroom surprise. So perhaps let's make this a little bit smaller for now because we don't really need it. Okay, so we've done that. The next thing that I want to do, well, I'm just going to probably add all of these for now. That's probably the easiest thing to do. So anything with this, it's not on the board, I want to be the unboxed. So I'm simply grabbing the string of unboxed, and I don't think this needs anything at the moment. So I'm just going to get rid of that. So we've got unboxed. The next thing I want to do is the pipes. So this is going to be pipe bottom left, or just pipe left actually. So we've got pipe left. Let's also have a pipe right. I'm just going to move this up. Now we need the top pipe parts of the pipe. Pipe top left side. Making sure that it's exactly spelled exactly the same. And then pipe top right side. And that is going to be a plus. Okay, so we've got that. We also want to have an evil shroom. So once again, I'm just going to copy that. And then we have the little hats as the shrooms. So I'm just going to say this is an evil shroom. I have the number 1 in there. We don't have another one for now. So I just have to make sure that I've spelt it exactly the same. So we've got our evil shroom. The next thing I want to add is stuff that we don't actually have yet. So I'm just going to say that this is going to be a mushroom. We have a bunch of blue things for the next level, but I think I'm going to leave them just for now. So if I run this now, here we go. Let's get rid of this because we want us to be able to see our board. Fantastic. I do need to scale some things in order for everything to fit for the purpose of the tutorial. So I'm just going to get rid of some of these now. Of course, like I said, you can make this as big or as little as you wish in your free time. But as this is a tutorial, I want to be able to show you everything comfortably. So yeah, feel free to make this your own when you can and when you've finished coding along with me. Okay, so I think that is much more manageable. Let's carry on. I'm going to actually get rid of maybe one more, just because I do want everything to fit comfortably, if I'm being honest. Okay. 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 So that's looking a lot better. Now, I don't want these to be these bricks, and I want to scale these. So I've done this on purpose so that I can show you how to scale sprites directly from the config. So I can now use scale 0.5 on all pipe related things because all the pipes seem to be too big. So I'm going to scale each of those and just click run. And perfect. Now the pipe is exactly the size we wish, without having to change the pixel, the PNG or the JPEG itself. So that is done. One thing I also want to do is perhaps change the bottom to be this brick right here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to copy this, and then let's maybe make the brick an X and call this brick. And I'm just going to replace, so I'm going to use Command D to replace all the bottom ones, like so, with an X, and hit run. Awesome. So now I can change the background as well. This is something I can do now or later. The choice is up to you. I would simply have to go here, and I'm just going to select the color and then click run. Oops. And there we go. Great. So we have our board. The next thing I want to do is add Mario. So I'm going to do so right down here. I'm going to say, I'm going to use the add Kaboom method to add a sprite, and I'm going to add the sprite Mario standing, because I think that's what we called our Mario standing. That's correct. So I'm going to add that to our board, and I'm also going to position him. So at the moment, I'm going to position him just sort of at the top here. So let's go ahead and click run. And there he is. Now I want to make him fall. So I'm just going to format this a little bit neater so it's more readable for everyone. So I can make Mario fall if I want. I can apply gravity to Mario. I simply have to do so by adding the body component to the array, just like that. And there he goes. But we don't really want him to fall through the ground, right? So we can actually prevent this by making the ground, so the brick, solid. So now if I click run, he stops. So while I'm here, I'm just going to decide what else I want to be solid. I definitely want the brick to be solid, and I want all the pipes to be solid too. So I'm just definitely going to make all of these solid like so. And I'm going to make the evil shroom solid too, as well as the blocks themselves and anything with the sprite question. So a whole bunch of solids there. Okay, great. So we have done that now. I'm just going to move this out so you can perhaps read it a little better. That's a lot more readable. Okay, so we've added our player. The next thing I'm going to do is add a score and a level. So I'm going to do so up here. I'm going to add, so once again using add, it's got a parenthesis and an array. I'm going to just space it out a bit so it's more readable. I'm going to put text, and I am going to just put in a 0 for now, which we will solve at the end, but I'm just going to hard code it just for now. And let's position it on our board. So sort of at the top. So this is the x-axis, if you remember from our previous lessons, and this is going to be the y-axis just from this point right here. So now that I've added that, I want to make sure that this won't interfere with our Pac-Man, it won't interfere with our game. So I need to add this to the UI layer, which we have not yet added, but I'm going to do that now. So just up here, I think which is the first thing that we should do, I'm going to define our layers. So that is a Kaboom method. I'm going to open up my parentheses and pass through an array, and in it I'm going to pass through all the layers that we want. So I only really want an object layer and a UI layer for this game, and I want to make the object layer the default. So if something doesn't have a layer assigned, it goes to the object layer. So that should be it. The next thing I want to do is actually pass through a value for the score. So I'm going to put value score. Value, if I can only spell it. And once again, we don't really have a score just yet, so I'm just going to hardcode it as 0, just so we can see it now. Let's actually save this so we can reuse it. So I'm going to save it as the score label, just like so. Great. So we've added the score label. The next thing I'm going to do is actually add something for the levels itself. So once again, I'm just going to use the array and pass through the Kaboom method of text and a string that is going to tell us what level it is. So level. Great. And I'm just going to pass through, again, I'm going to hard code a 0 for now. We won't leave it like this, don't worry, but we don't have any levels to pass through at the moment. And then let's position it. So x-axis, y-axis from the top. And then we just need to make sure that that is in parenthesis and that is in parenthesis. Okay, wonderful. So we have our score and we have our level 0 showing up. Let's move on. Now, let's actually assign, so I'm going to save this as const player so we can reuse it in our code. The next thing I want to do is make sure that our player can move. So I'm going to use key down to do this, just like we did in the previous lesson. So key down, I need to pass through two things, a string of which key is pressed on our keyboard and a function as to what happens if we press that key. So if I press the key left, well, I want to grab the player, I want to use the Kaboom method of move, and I want to pass through an x-axis and a y-axis. And because I want him to move left, well, it's going to be this one right here. So I could say 120, or I could assign a move speed to Mario. So let's make that 120. So now to move left, I need to make sure this is minus 120. And we don't want anything to happen in the y-axis, so I'm just going to pass through a 0. Okay, so let's check it out. So now if I press the left key, but he's going left. So now let's do it for the right side. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to make this right. And I'm just going to make this not negative, so he's moving 120 on the x-axis. So now let's check it out. And great. The next thing I want to do is for Mario to jump. So this time, I'm going to show you how to use key press. It's exactly the same. If I pass through a space bar, so the string of space, or what do I want to happen? Let's write a function. Now I can make our player jump. So I can grab player and use jump. So that is a method. And I can pass through a jump force. So let's make this 300 from now. I'm just going to put it in there. So now if I run this and I press space, there he goes. He's jumping a bit too high for my liking without a mushroom, so I'm just going to change this to 150 instead and see how that looks. That is much too small. Let's try 200. Let's try 300. And finally, let's just try 360. I think that should be okay. Okay, great. So he jumps just high enough to hit these, but not high enough to, I guess, we don't want that double jump either, but not high enough to get onto the next level. So that is fine. Let's get rid of the double jump. So we only want him to jump if the player is grounded. So that is another Kaboom method we can use. So only jump, so that'll get rid of the double jumps. Great. Now I want essentially stuff to spawn if I hit the question marks, so the surprise boxes. So where should we do that? Let's just do that below here. I'm going to move these to be at the top of the file, just purely because I think it's much neater. So I'm going to grab that, and I'm also going to grab the move speed. Great. So now I'm going to grab the player, and on, if there is a head bump, so again, this is a Kaboom method, Well, I want, so this is a function which I've actually passed through an object through. This will make sense in a bit. If whatever object we collide with is, and then let's use the tag of coin surprise that we made. So we've already made this. As you can see, it's here. So anything with this has the tag of coin surprise. If the object that we collide with is a coin surprise, well, I want to essentially spawn a coin. So I need to assign the level. So I'm going to assign this to game level in order for this to work. So I've assigned the level to game level. Now I need to grab the game level, and I'm going to use the method of spawn to spawn a coin. So do we have a coin here? We do have a coin. It's the $sign. So I'm going to spawn a coin. And where do I want to spawn a coin? Well, I want to spawn it whatever the object that we collide with. And then I'm going to use grid position of that object sub. And if we just pass through a 0, I'm going to show you what happens. So I think this is a coin surprise. So the coin appears directly on the object. I don't want that. I want it to be above the object. So I'm going to pass through a 1. Let's try again. Boom. Okay, so it appears above the object. So this is looking great. The next thing I want to do is actually destroy the object. So I can do so like that. That is a Kaboom method. I'm passing through the object that I've just collided with to destroy it. So I want to destroy it. But I also want to replace it. So this is how you'd replace. You'd use the game level spawn. And I want to replace it with unboxed. So I'm going to grab that. And I'm going to pass through the string of unboxed. And then I'm going to position it. Well, we've already done this. Exactly where the other object is. So I would just do position sub 0, 0. Let's give it a go. Boom. How good is that? Nothing will happen here because that's a mushroom surprise, but that is a coin surprise too. So now that we have that, I'm actually going to copy all of this and just reuse it. If object is mushroom surprise, I want to spawn a mushroom, which is this right here. So I'm going to spawn that and let's run it. So now, no, I want to spawn the mushroom here, sorry, and replace it with, good that we check that, otherwise we get both. And there we go. Great. Now we also want the mushroom to move, right? Otherwise, how are we ever going to get Mario to grow? So I'm going to move the mushroom. To do this, I'm going to use action. And this runs every frame second. And I'm going to grab anything with the tag of mushroom. So let's just check that has a tag of mushroom. So let's just give this a tag of mushroom as it doesn't have one. So I'm just going to give it the string of mushroom like so. Now anything with the tag of mushroom, well, what do I want to happen to it? Let's write a function and find out. Just get rid of that. So anything with the tag of mushroom, I'm going to pass through m for mushroom and I want to move it. So as soon as we see the mushroom, I want to grab the mushroom and I want to move it on the x-axis. So let's move it at 20 and then we don't want anything on the y-axis. So let's give that a go. And if I hit this, there we go. Our mushroom is moving, but it's not falling. We need to change that. So I'm also going to apply gravity to it, just like we did with Mario. So now, there we go. Our mushroom is falling. This is looking great. Okay, so now it's time to make Mario big if it eats a mushroom. So let's do it now. I'm going to do so right here. So I'm going to write my own function. I'm going to call it function big. And in it, I'm going to start a timer. Let timer start off with 0. And then I'm going to return update if is big. So we also need to make sure that he's big here. Let is big equal true. Actually false to start. So it's false to start. If he is big, however, well then I want to get the timer and just keep minusing delta time from it. Delta time is, I'm just going to show you now on Kaboom.js. Delta time is the delta time since last frame. So that was a good one to know. I'm going to minus that, and then if the timer is suddenly smaller than or equal to 0, well then I want to make Mario small again. So this smallify, which is something we're going to write soon. So if he's big, I essentially want the timer to start counting down, and if the timer reaches 0 or less than 0, we turn him back to being small. Great. Now, is big, I'm just going to return is big. So if we use that later, well, you'll see what I mean when we use it later. And this is where we write smallify as well, that we used above here. And to make Mario small, what do we need to do? Well, we need to make sure that his scale is 1 as opposed to anything else. I'm just going to pass through a 1. And then I'm going to start off the timer. I'm going to make sure the timer is at 0 again and make sure that is big equals false. Okay, so we've written smallify. Now let's write bigify. Bigify. And essentially, I just need to get all of this right here. And then this scale, let's make him times 2. And is big is true. And then we just need to define a time. So whatever we pass through into bigify is going to be exactly how long Mario stays big for. Okay, so that time gets passed down to the timer. It probably doesn't make much sense now, but promise me when we use it, it will. So now I can add big to the player itself. Next, I am going to write what happens when the player actually collides with the mushroom. So I'm going to write player collides, and then I'm going to pass through the tag of mushroom. So anything with the tag of mushroom. If our player collides with it, well, what do we want to happen? Let's write a function. So into the function, I'm going to pass through m for mushroom itself. And if our player collides with the mushroom, I want to get the player and I want to use bigify. So the exact thing that we wrote, bigify, and I'm going to pass through. So if I pass through a 6, well, our player is going to be big, turn big for 6 seconds, and then he's going to be turned back to small. So a normal scale of scale 1. I also want to destroy the mushroom. So I'm going to use the Kaboom method of destroy and pass through the m for mushroom. So let's check it out. So now I'm just going to hit that. See, I can't do anything with them yet. And there we go. I am now big. Woo! And then I should turn small. And there we go. So now I am big. This is looking good. I also want to write what happens if the player collides with, so player collides with a coin. So anything with the tag of coin. Just need to make sure that the coin has a tag. It does not, so let's just give it a tag. So if the player collides with anything with the coin, I just want to add to the score. So I'm going to grab the score label value and use the increment operator to add one to it. And I'm also going to grab the score label text and just assign it whatever the score label's value is. So let's check it out. That should be solid. I obviously can't jump high enough now, but let's try get a mushroom and get a coin. So that is, my score is increasing, as you can see. However, I also need to destroy the coin now. So C for coin. So we can't keep getting more and more points, right? There's only one coin. We need one score. So now let's try that out again. We get 1 point. This should be solid. So let's also make the unboxed solid by passing through solid like so. Great. So that is looking better. The next thing I want to do is make our little evil mushrooms move. So I'm going to do that down here. Here, I'm going to grab anything with a tag of dangerous. So we need to assign dangerous to the evil shroom. So I'm just going to give it the tag of dangerous like so. So anything with the tag of dangerous, I'm just going to write a function to say what happens. I'm going to pass through D for dangerous, and I'm going to just move whatever D is for dangerous. Let's give it, so this is X and Y axis. Let's give it an X axis. It's Y axis. Y axis we know is 0. So let's make it move 120. So once again, I can save this as something so I can reuse it. I'm going to save it as enemy speed and make that 120. So now I can simply use enemy speed like so. I'm actually going to make it a negative, so they're moving left as well. And I'm going to move this to the top of my file just to keep things neat. So now, whoa, they're moving really fast. Whoa, that is way too fast. I think let's maybe make them move at 30. Okay, so that is better. I still think maybe that's too fast, but you know, it's up to you how fast you want them to move now. So the next thing I want to happen is when they collide, I don't want them to push, okay? I want them to... So I just essentially want it to go to a game over. So I'm going to use player collides again. And if our player collides with anything with a tag of dangerous, what do I want to happen? Let's write a function and find out. So if our player collides with anything with the tag of dangerous, okay, so this is where we want to figure out if he is jumping, right? Because at the moment, if we do, we just want to go to a lose scene. So we want to go to a lose scene and take our score with us. And the score is going to be whatever the score label value is. So we could easily do this. I'm just going to create a new scene. So I'm going to click here and add a loose scene just like that. And in here, I'm going to use add. I'm going to open an array and put the text. The argument that I'm going to pass through is score. Args. So we just go to a loose scene where that is really small. I can, of course, make that bigger if I want, and I can center it. So origin, center, position it, grab whatever the width is of my screen divided by 2, the X, and grab the height and divide that by 2 to get the Y axis. And I can also scale it, so scale it by 10 if I really want. So now, if I collide, there we go. The score is huge. This is looking good. Let's go back to our main scene. So we have nearly everything. We have, we have our little Mario. We need to write what happens so we can destroy these little guys too, so we don't have to keep dying. So perhaps, yeah, let's do that now. Okay, so just gonna jump over them for now to get them out of the way. Oh, Okay, let's just leave it as 0. So I'm going to get rid of this again and make this bigger. So at the moment, our player collides with dangerous and we go to the lose scene. However, we want to write something to let our JavaScript know that we are jumping. Because if we're jumping, then we don't want to lose. We want to kill the anything that is dangerous. So if is jumping, this is the equivalent of writing equals true. I could just simply pass through the Boolean. If it's true, then it will execute this, else it will execute this and go to the lose scene. So I'm just going to get that. So if is jumping is true, I want to destroy anything with the tag of dangerous. Okay? Great. If it's, oh yes, we have not defined is jumping. Sorry, that is my fault. I'm going to grab that here and I'm just going to put let is jumping and make it equal true to start with. So at the moment, it's always going to be true. So there we go. We just need to pass through a D. And I'm just going to jump. And great. So we are destroying the little mushrooms. We are also, oh, where did he go? He seems to have disappeared. We can fix that. So just in case you are having that happen to you, find the player. So that's where we add the player. This should fix that happening. So just pass through origin bot. Let's try again. So boom, boom. And then let's grow bigger. Great. Cool. Now I need to increase my jump size, right? Because, you know, he's meant to jump higher if he gets bigger. So I'm going to do that as well as fixing the is jumping too. So let's do that first. So currently he is jumping at the jump force of 360. So we need to increase that to another jump force. So we could have big jump force if we want. I'm going to make this 550. Now I'm also going to have a current jump force, which is going to change, but it's going to start off with the normal jump force. Okay, so there we go. Now in here, if we are smallifying and is big as false, I want the current jump force just to be the jump force. However, if he's becoming big or if he is big, I want the current jump force to be big jump force. Okay, so let's see if that has worked. So once again, I'm just going to kill these guys and I'm going to get my mushroom. Going to be big. Oops, okay, so we are using current jump force. However, when we press the space bar, so let's find the space bar, and use the current jump force, okay, because that is now changing. It's now changing from big jump force to just jump force. So let's try it again. Just gonna kill these guys. I'm gonna be big, and that's much better. Check out how high we are jumping, and I just want to make sure that we are back to our normal jump force now. Fantastic. So one more thing before we move on, and that is to make sure that that his jumping is not always true. So back where we use the space bar, just above it actually, I'm going to use player and I'm going to use action, which runs every frame second, and just check. So if, once again, I'm going to use player and I'm going to use grounded. If the player is grounded, so check that he is, and if he is, I want is jumping to be false. And if player is grounded and we press the space bar, I want is jumping to be true. Okay, so if we press the space bar and he's grounded, then we want him to jump. However, if he's just grounded, then is jumping is false. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's move on. Now I'm just going to move this all the way to the top, but after I define the player, so right here, and click run. Okay, so that is all working. Now I want the camera to follow me if I go to the right. So let's go ahead and do that now. So right under here, I'm going to grab the player and I'm going to use action again. So to check every frame second, and I want to actually use camera position, so another Kaboom method in order to just follow the player position. So we just pass through the player position into the cam position. I also want to do one more thing while you're here, and I'm going to say that if the player position y-axis is suddenly larger or equal to the full depth, so anywhere like below here is going to be the full depth, then I want to go to the loose scene as well. And I'm just going to pass through the score just like we did before. So the score labels value as the score. So now let's define our full depth, const full depth, and I'm just going to say 600. Okay. I think that should be fine. Let's check it out. So now, just gonna fall, and it works. And the camera's following us too. This is looking good. Now let's go to our next level. So I want to go to the next level. If we actually land on the pipe right here. So let's do that. I'm gonna actually do that towards the bottom. Where shall we do it? I guess it doesn't really matter. Let's just do it here. So I'm going to grab the player again, and if player collides with anything with the tag of pipe, then what do we want to happen? We want to go to the next level. So let's just check that these things have the pipes, have a tag of pipe themselves. They do not. So I really just need to add it to the top one. So I'm going to add it to here. And I'm going to add it to here, making sure that it's in the array. So now when I collide with those, I want to go to the next game scene. So let's think about this. I'm just going to get rid of this for now. If I collide with a pipe, but also if I key press down, as that is what happens, I need to key press down. So if these two things are true, if I'm on the pipe and then I press key down, then I want to go to my game again, but I want to go to the next level. So I'm going to pass through level like so, and I'm just going to pass through level +1 for now. Okay, so we're going to the next level, and then I'm also going to take the score with me. So score label value. Great. At the moment, I'm just going to comment this out for now, and let's do our second scene. So let's do that now. So before we get finishing on to moving on to the next scene, I'm actually going to make the next scene as that makes the most sense. So we already have one map. I'm going to actually now make an array of 2 maps. So our array of maps is going to store one map and a second map. And our first map, so this here, is just going to be all of this right here. So I'm going to cut this and then maybe just space it out a little bit so it's a bit easier to read. That is now going to be our first item in our maps array. So there we go. Maybe format that a little bit better. And then we just have to make our second map too. So now instead of passing map along with the level config, I'm going to get my array, and whatever the first item is in my array, well, that's going to return this. So that's, if I pass through a 0, I'm getting the first item from my array. If I pass through a 1, I'm getting the second item from my array. So let's make the second map now. I'm simply just going to copy most of this really and just paste it in here, but change things around. So we use the blue theme this time. So let's do it. So what do I want this time? I don't think it should be as tall. And I'm actually going to use a lot of the blue things that we have. So I do know that I want walls at the side, so I'm just going to add those. And to the other side too. So just like that. And then we don't want the bricks anymore. So perhaps let's make these Z's. I don't think we've used Z, so I'm going to use Z's in this level. And then we do want a pipe. However, let's have the pipe at the end this time. So it's quite nice as we actually get to reuse everything that we've done before, and we can also reuse the logic. So again, I'm not going to have these mushrooms. I'm going to have some different mushrooms this time, and my mushroom's going to be this guy. And then I'm just going to delete these two and just use a bunch of ats this time. And then we obviously have our pipe. I also want some just things we can scale. So things we can climb, scale, whatever you wish to call it. So I'm just going to make those now. Once again, please have all the fun creating this all by yourself. It really is hours of fun creating these levels. Okay, so we've now defined some new things in here. Let's get to it. So now we have some Z's. Well, we actually also have some of these signs as well. The pound sign. So I'm just going to leave these blank for now so we can fill them out. We've got pound sign. We've got a Z. What else do we have? We've got an @ sign. And we've got a $sign and, sorry, an exclamation and an S. So now let's have a look here. Well, I know that I want some blue bricks to be this. So I'm going to say blue brick. And I also know that I want this to be solid. So I'm just going to pass through solid. Do we want a blue surprise? I think we do. I don't think we have one though. So I'm just going to make a 7, a blue surprise. I'm going to also add that in here. So let's make a 7 for a blue surprise, if you wish. In fact, I'm not going to bother, but if you want to add, then please add. You know how to do that now with the coin surprises and so on and so on. So yeah, if you want to add that, please do. Let's add an evil mushroom. So this is the blue evil mushroom. I'm going to call it blue evil mushroom. And I'm going to give it the tag of dangerous so that we can apply all the other logic that we've already done to it. So that is pretty handy. S, what do we want S? S is going to be our blue steel. And I'm also going to make this solid. And then we also need the sides. So what can we make these sides? What are the Z's? The Z's is the floor. So we might have to add something else for the floor. So I'm just going to do that now. We're going to add this blue block to be the floor. So blue block, and then let's have blue brick. Great. Let's hit run. Sprite not found. Blue evil mushroom is not found. Blue evil shroom. Click run. Oh, and there we go. Okay, we need to scale everything to be half because as you can see, it's very big. So let's do it again. I'm going to use scale 0.5. Not here, but here on anything that is new. And then we need to make these solid too. So make sure that everything with a brick is solid. Okay, we've actually reused this blue brick, so if I really wanted to, I could definitely change it. So let's maybe do that. Or let's add some we could make these blue surprises, so I'm just going to make a blue surprise. Sorry, I'm being really indecisive. So blue surprise. And then we can also give this a tag of coin surprise. So exactly what we expect to happen for a coin surprise will happen for these just because we gave it the tag. So how handy is that? Saves us having to rewrite so much logic. Okay, amazing. So how cool is that? Once again, it's pretty much done everything for us. And if we look here, all the levels will act pretty much the same way. Cool, so that is looking good. We definitely die if we hit one of these, so that is good. Why are these not sprouting coins though? Let's have a look. So blue surprise, coin surprise. Ah, it's because I misspelt it, so let's run that. Okay, fantastic. So much work saved for us. It's incredible, right? Whee! Okay, great. We have one more thing to do, and that is make sure that our Mario goes to the next level. So let's do it. Okay, so what I would do is this, just like so. I would just have to define a level. Okay, so there we go. Amazing. Now we can actually get our scores, our levels to loop. All I'd have to do is find the level, and then I would use modulus, the level length, to make sure that they loop. Okay, so let's check that out one more time. Okay, and then of course make sure that these scores are passing too. And great. So we have now finished the Mario game. This was super fun. Thank you so much for coding with me. Of course, please take this game. I'm sure there's many improvements that could be made and many improvements that you can contribute to it too. So just head over to mine if you want and fork it, or just use what you have coded so far. Thanks so much again, and one more game to go. Let's do it. This time we'll be doing Zelda completely from scratch. Okay, so now it's time to start coding Zelda, but completely from scratch. So before we were using the pre-configured Kaboom Replit environment, this time I'm going to show you how to use Kaboom.js, so the JavaScript library, in a index.html and JavaScript file. Okay, so completely from scratch, let's do it. The first thing I'm going to do is actually go back to the Kaboom.js page, and I'm simply going to take all of this script just right here. I'm then going to, in my index.html file, so all of that script, there's two scripts, there's the first script and the second script. I'm simply going to take all of it and just at the bottom of my two body tags, just paste everything like so. Okay, so if I run that now, you will see oh hi Mark in the browser. Now this is great, but I don't really want to keep all my JavaScript in here because at the moment that is what is happening. So I'm just going to cut this out. So that is all you should see in the index.html file for now, and in here I'm just going to paste the JavaScript like so. Now back in here, instead of having this script tag with the type module, I'm going to have a script tag and a closing script tag with the source of whatever my JavaScript file is called. So obviously at the moment it is game.js, just like that. And it's in the root of our project, so I don't have to do anything. I just put the file name like so. Do make sure that it's under the Kaboom.js script, okay, along with the version. Okay, so just like that, body tag, first script, second script. If I get rid of this, that might be a lot easier to read. I'm just going to format it a little bit too. Great. So if I run this, nothing should change. Let's carry on. So this is our index.html file. Now let's move on to our JavaScript file. So once again, I'm just going to get rid of that. Okay, so this is great. However, it's not really our Zelda game. So let's start. I'm just going to start from scratch. Once again, I need to initiate the Kaboom.js environment. So I'm going to do this, get some curly braces, and I'm going to put global true. Let's make the game full screen, true. Scale, let's start off with scale 1. Let's put debug as true as well, so we get the debug messages. And I'm just going to make a clear background. So I'm going to make it, let's make it black. Okay, perfect. So now that we have Kaboom initialized, let's add some sprites. So this is a completely different way to do it. Obviously before we were using the Replit environment where you can draw the sprites directly in here. However, if you are using your own IDE or just doing it on Replit from scratch, we can do this. So there is a Kaboom method called load sprite, and we simply write it like so. Now, I have actually stored all my images online so you can use them as well. When I do projects like this, I usually store all my images on this third-party service called Imager. So if you go to my Imager and look at my posts, you can see I've already made a bunch of sprites for us for this Zelda game. So I'm just going to go ahead and lift some now. Let's get link going left. I'm simply going to get shareable links. I'm going to copy this BBC code one right here, and I'm simply going to paste the path to my sprite. I'm also going to name it while I'm here. So I'm also going to pass through a string, let's say link going left, just so it's easier for me to work with. Now, I could, so there's my first sprite. Let's get also link going right. So let's go back here and let's find link going right. So I'm just going to, once again, get shareable link and click this right here and just go back to here and paste the path to my link going right this time. So I could keep doing this, but of course this is very wordy and there is a lot of repetition. There is another Kaboom method called load route, which will allow me to essentially load this route. So I don't have to write it each time. So that is a lot neater. Let's carry on. So we've got link going left, link going right. Let's also have link going down, link going up, left wall, right wall. Let's have the top wall, bottom wall, and then also the corner walls. So essentially I'm getting everything that I need to make up my link game in order for us to create our board. So now let's go bottom left wall, bottom right wall, top left wall, top right wall, and let's just do these for now and then we'll carry on in a bit. So link going down, just going to go in here and grab this little guy, copy the link, and once again just paste it in here, simply using this at the end. And then link going up. So again, I am just going to get share links, copy that one, paste it in here. But get rid of this as we already have the root. Now let's get the left wall. So this looks like a left wall to me. Once again, I'm going to get the share link, copy that, and just paste it in here. Now let's get the right wall. So this to me looks like a right wall. Get share links, copy, paste that in here. Let's find our top wall now. So this to me actually looks like a bottom wall. It's fine, we'll just do the bottom wall now. Get share links, copy, bottom wall, just like so. And just paste into top wall. Okay, now let's get the bottom left wall. So this to me looks like a bottom left wall. Let's get the BBC code. So share link, copy, bottom left wall and just get rid of the rich bottom right wall. That to me looks like a bottom right wall. Get shell link, copy, and just paste it in here like so. Now let's get the top left wall. Once again, get shell links. And now the top right wall. So this should be the last of the walls. We just have some doors and some enemies to put in. So get share links, copy, and just whack that in there. Perfect. So now we've got all the walls. I'm just going to move that up here for us. We've got a few more things to do. Let's get the top door. So we're going to have a top door, a left door, oops. We're also going to have a fire pot. So that's just going to be some decorations really. I'm also going to have some lanterns. Then let's put in a slicer. So this is the first of our baddies, I guess. Skeletor. It's not actually Skeletor, but looks quite similar. So that's how I've named this little character. Some stairs. And then let's also have a background. So I'm just going to go BG for background. So let's carry on. Let's get our top door. So this is my top door. Get share links, copy. And once again, just making sure just to get the end. Let's find our left door. Get share links, copy. Just going to put it in as a string along with the name that I gave this sprite. So there we go. Fire pots. Let's find some fire pots. So this is what I called a fire pot. Get share link, copy. Once again, get rid of that. Lanterns is up next. Let's get the lanterns. So these are my lanterns. You can see I've got a lot of images in here, all from like various projects that I have on YouTube, either on freeCodeCamp or on my own channel. So there we go. Let's get these slices. So, actually let's get Skeletor, just because, you know, he's here. Let's copy that, let's put that in here, just like so. This is what I called a slicer, so get share link, copy. Share link, copy. And now for the background, which is going to be a lot bigger than all these sprites, but that is not a problem. So once again, get share link, copy, and just put that in here. Fantastic. So we've got all our sprites. Let's move on. The next thing I'm going to show you how to do is add a scene. So this way is different than we did before. I'm going to show you, of course, how to do it from scratch. And from scratch, we would use the Kaboom method scene, just like so. I'm going to open up a parenthesis, and the first thing I'm going to pass through is the name of the scene. And the second thing is going to be a function. So this is where all the magic is going to happen. So let's call this scene game. And I will be passing through a level and a score into here, so that with each level we actually get the score and move on to the next level and so on, as well as the level. But we don't really have anything at the moment quite yet, because we need to also start the game. So this is another Kaboom method. To start the game, I would simply pass through the string of what scene I want to start, as well as anything else. So as I already said, I want to pass through the level and the score into the game scene. So to start with, I'm simply going to say that the level is 0 and the score is also 0. Okay, so if we run that, we won't really see anything because we haven't actually written any logic, but that is sort of what you need to do to get started. So for now, I'm just going to define our maps. So let's do that first. So once again, I've showed you how to do this now. However, I am going to just comment it out until we need it and until we, start working with the level and score. So I'm just going to comment this out like so. Great. So at the moment, we are not passing through anything into the game. Now, as I said, the first thing I want to do is define our maps. So let's start off with the first one first, const map. Now, I need to draw my actual map. So to do this, I'm just going to make everything in these quotation marks. And I'm just going to decide what I want as all my sprites. So let's just, for now, I'm just going to show you what I mean. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then let's make it 10 by 10. Three. 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9. Then one more to make it 10. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Amazing. And I just need to put a comma after all of these. Two. Great. So for now, I'm just going to put C's in here, just to show you how this would look. Okay, so we've got our map. Now we need to use another Kaboom method called add level. And into add level, making sure to spell it camel case, we need to pass through two things. The first is our map as an array, and then the second is our level config as an object. So we already have a map defined, so I'm just going to pass through a map, and then our level config. Now I can actually define the level config here. It might make things neater as it is going to be quite chunky. So our level config is going to look like this. So we did say it's an object. So now I could just remove this and just pass through level config. And our object is going to look a little bit like this. So in here, we're going to define how big each of these symbols are going to be on our board. So I'm going to say that each one is going to have a width of, let's say 48 and a height of 48 pixels. Just purely that's because that's how big I actually made my pixels on Imager. Okay, and then I'm going to say that anything with C is going to be, and this is the syntax, so I open up an array, I use the Kaboom method of sprite, and then in here, I'm just going to pass through the string of top wall. Okay, so the string of top wall is equivalent to the sprite, which I uploaded above. So now I'm saying that anything with a C is going to be a top wall on my map. So now if I actually run this, well, there we go. We can already see our map. Now I can make this a bit smaller just so it's easier to work with. And there we go. Okay, maybe let's make it a tiny bit bigger. So now you will see that all my walls are the top wall. So I don't want this. Let's actually go to actually drawing our Zelda map correctly. So back in here, so we've already defined the top wall as C. Let's do a sprite left wall B sprite right wall, making sure to spell all these strings correctly of the sprites that you imported. So we've got our left wall, right wall, top wall. I'm just going to copy this out to make it a little easier. Let's make D the bottom wall. And then maybe let's use something else for the corner ones. So let's make W the top right wall. X the bottom left wall. Y the top left wall. And let's make Z the bottom right wall. Okay. Let's copy that. Now, so let's actually use that first perhaps. Or let's just do all of them first. What should we do? Let's just import all of them to use, and then we can use them to draw our map. So let's use these symbols now, because you don't have to just use the alphabet. Let's also do the left door, just like that. Let's also have so hack be the top door. Let's have some stairs. Let's also have the slicer. What should we make our slicer? Let's make him this little guy, slicer. And then Skeletor can be this. So sprite Skeletor. And then let's have some lanterns in too, and then just the fire pot. Lanterns. And our fire pot. Let's make the fire pot the other way. Fire pot. Fantastic. So we've done all of that. Let's also add our background while we're here. So I'm just going to do that down here. I'm going to use add, and then I'm going to open up my array. So just like we did with the sprite above, I'm going to find the background. So I saved it as BG. And then I'm going to say the layer it belongs in is on the background, because I don't want it interfering with any of my objects, and I don't want it interfering with any sort of words I put on. So let's actually define the layers first. So we already know we've got a background layer. Let's do that up here. So just under where I use the scene method, I'm going to say layers. I'm going to define the layers. So I'm going to have 3 layers in this game. I'm going to have a background layer, as we've already discussed, and then also going to have an object layer for where all my objects and all my enemies and all my players are going to be with. And then I'm also going to have a UI layer, so that these layers can't interfere with each other, okay? We can't collide with them. They're very separate. And then my default, so if something doesn't have a layer, it's going to be the object layer. Great. So now if I run this, well, there you go. The background is added. Let's now get to using all of these on my map. So we already know that this is going to be the left wall. So I'm just going to use Command D to change all these to an A. And then let's change all these to the right wall. So I might as well just make them all B's for now. And then the bottom, well actually I know this is the bottom left, and then what's the top left is a Y, and then we've got the bottom right, that's a Z, and then top right is a W. And what is the bottom wall? Well, that's all D's, so I'm just going to go D, 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 like so. And then let's also perhaps put our lanterns in here. So I'm just going to put that in here. And I'm going to have a door. Just like so. And there. Great. Let's also have a left door here. So I'm just going to perhaps put that in here. I think I've got 1 too many levels. I only want this to be 9 high. So let's go ahead and delete that. That should be fine. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And let's put in some more lanterns at the bottom. So I'm going to put in a lantern here, and then we're missing the corner one. Bottom right is a Z. Great. And then I'm also going to put a slicer. So this was my slicer here, and a slicer here, as well as some fire pots, because you know fire pots are always fun. So let's put those in the center of our game. So I'm just going to put one here and one here, and let's have a look at what that looks like. I'm not sure that is the center, but we will soon find out. So I'm just going to run this, and there we go. How good does that look? Okay, we did pretty well. This one's incorrect though. Bottom left wall. This should just be an X. My bad. Amazing. Okay, this is looking awesome. I'm super pleased with it. Let's carry on. So we've defined our layers. We've added a map. The next thing I want to do is add my little Zelda. So let's do that here. Okay. So I'm going to use the Kaboom method of add. I'm going to open up my parentheses and once again get my square brackets. In here, I'm actually going to get sprite once again, and I'm going to just start off with link going left. So I'm going to grab the string of link going left. So that is the sprite that we imported above. And the next thing I want to do is just assign a position to it. So I can use POS for position like so. And then I'm just going to make him go left. So this is where we start positions from. Left 5 and down 190. So you should be somewhere around here. Great. So now if I run this, well, there he is. Maybe let's have him going right actually. So I could just switch this out. And there we go. So he's sort of on the door at the moment. The next thing I need to do is actually make our little sprite move. So perhaps let's do that first. To make things easier, I'm going to assign all of this code to const player so we can keep reusing it throughout the game. So now I'm going to use key down. So this is one that we've used in the previous lessons. And if we press key down and we press the left key on our keyboard where we want something to happen, right? So I'm just going to put in a function here. So the string of what key followed by a function of what's going to happen. That's what the key down or key press Kaboom method takes. So if we press key left, well, I want the player to move, and then we need to define a speed. So I'm going to perhaps define that here. We could just pass through a number, but to make it all reusable, I'm going to define a speed for us here, and I'm just going to call it move speed. And then let's make it 120 for now. Let's see how that goes. So I'm going to say when he's moving left, well, we have to grab the move speed and make it negative. With the move Kaboom method, the first thing we pass through is the x-axis and the second is the y-axis. So in this case, I want the y-axis to be 0. I don't want anything to change on the y-axis, but I do want something to change on the x-axis. I want him to go left. So that is how we would do that. So there we have it. We have key down left. Let's also have, if he moves right, well then we want to just simply move at the move speed. And then let's also have up. And this time, you guessed it, this has to be 0, and this is going to be the move speed. But this one's also going to be a negative. And then finally, we have the key down, move down, in which this is not a negative, it just looks like this. So now if we run the game, there we go. Our little sprite is moving. Now we can also do a change sprite, which is something that we didn't cover in the previous games, but I think is quite fun. So I'm going to do that now. When we go left, I want to grab the player and I want to use a method called change sprite to change the sprite to whatever other sprite we imported. So in this case, I want to change it to link going left. Okay? And let's do the same for the others. This one's going to have link going right. And then let's have link going up and link going down. So just a reminder, I'm simply using all of these here to change the sprite to these if we press on the keys. So now, here we go. That is looking so good. I think we are ready to move on. Okay. Now, the next thing I think we should do is move our little slices. So let's do it. For this, I'm just going to gravitate down here to do our slicer game logic. So this time, well, I'm going to use the Kaboom method of action because I'm going to grab anything with the tag of slicer, and then let's get our function up. So there is obviously a pattern here. We usually pass through a string and then a function into most of these Kaboom methods. And what do I want to happen to the slicer? Well, to every slicer, so S for slicer, or everything with the tag of slicer, I should say. So perhaps let's go up here, and I'm just going to give slicer the tag of slicer like so. So now everything with the tag of slicer, well, I'm going to grab the slicer, I'm going to move it. Now I can move the slicer, once again, X and Y axis, but I actually want to change the direction of the slicer. I want him to bash into the wall and then change direction when he bashes into the wall. Because at the moment, let's define a const slicer speed. Let's make it 120. If I put through the slicer speed here and just keep this 0 and run it, our slicers are moving, but they're just carrying on. This is not what I want. So let's fix this. To do this, I'm going to go back up here because I need to give all my walls and everything that I want to essentially be solid on the board, the component of solid. So in here, I'm essentially going to, on all the walls, I'm going to give them the component of solid. I'm also going to give them the tag of wall, which you will see why later. But we essentially want to treat all of these as walls, just like so. So we've got a few more to treat as walls and to treat as solid. So there we go. That is looking good. While I'm here, I'm also going to make the lanterns solid because at the moment we can move through them. I don't want this. So let's make the lanterns solid too. Oh, and the fire pots. So that was actually solid. So that was actually a fire pot. These are the lanterns, but we need both to be solid, really. So there we go. That is looking good. We can also assign the lantern the tag of wall, just in case, because we want it to be treated like a wall, essentially. Great. So we've done that. Now while I'm here, I'm also going to give our slicer a direction. So I'm going to start off with the direction of the slicer being -1. Okay, we can add any sort of object we want in here. It's sort of like a storing value. So I've just chosen to store dir -1, which I know is for direction. So now that we have that, let's carry on. So we have our slicers moving off. Let's just check we can't go through the lantern. We can go through the lantern. Okay, so to fix this, I can actually fix this. I just need to resolve the player. So what I would do, so just after I've added the player just here, I would use player action and then grab the player and resolve. So that should fix the issue of the player going through things that are solid. So let's try that. Perfect. So now we can't go through anything that is solid. Great. Okay. So now that the slices have a direction and they're moving off, I actually want them to change direction, sorry, when they hit anything with the tag of wall. So let's do it. So just here, I am going to use the Kaboom method of collides, just like so. And anytime anything with the tag of slicer collides with anything with the tag of wall, once again, let's write our function. And the slicer, so if that happens and if both collide, I want this slicer dir to change to -dir. So if this is currently a positive, it will change to a negative. And if it's a negative, it will change to a positive. Maths. So that is happening and that should change the direction. However, now that we have that, I need to make sure that that is being applied here. So I can use S direction and multiply it. So whatever S direction is at the moment, so if it's a -1, I will multiply it to 120, which will make that -120. So our slider or slicer will move left. And alternatively, it's a 1, but we'll multiply 1 by 120, and our slider will move 120 to the right. So that is cool. Let's check that out. And we've done it. Our sliders are moving and they are literally bouncing off the walls and changing direction. So this is looking good. Let's carry on. Now, I need to write some code for what happens if we, collide with our slider, because that's a bad thing. I want our player to essentially lose. So that is a game over in my eyes. I could do so by grabbing the player and using overlaps this time. And if our player overlaps with the slicer, or I could put dangerous. So that means that anything with the tag of dangerous, which means I can reuse this tag, will result in our player losing and going to a losing scene. So at the moment, I'm just going to perhaps make let's maybe leave this for now because I need to write the score. So I'm going to apply the tag of dangerous to the slicer, and I'm also going to apply it to skeletal. Great. Now that we've done that, I think we need to start looking at the score, because if there is a loose scene, I want to go to the loose scene with our final score. So let's do it. Just under here, I'm going to add, so once again, open up a parenthesis and an array, and I'm just going to start with the text being a hard-coded 0, just to start off with, and let's position it on our game board. So I'm going to make it go at the bottom, so X and Y axis, and then I'm going to add it to the UI layer so it doesn't interfere with our game. And I'm just going to assign the value, the score. So whatever the score currently is, that is the value. Okay? So because we don't have a score at the moment, I now need to pass through the score to start the game. So we're going to start off at 0, and then up here, once again, I'm going to uncomment that out. That is being passed into my game scene, and if I run, don't forget to add that comma. Now if I run the game, you will see a tiny 0, but it's very small. Let's scale it up. So I'm going to scale it up by 4, just so we can see. Okay, so now we've got a score. It's obviously 0 because we don't have anything yet. Let's write our lose scene, and then that should show the score. So what I would do is simply use the Kaboom method of go, and then I'm going to pass through lose to make a lose scene, and then I am simply going to get the score, and I'm going to save this as const score label. So I'm going to get the score, and whatever the score label's value is, that's what I'm going to pass through. So now let's just collide with one of these. Check that's working. We haven't actually written our scene, so let's go ahead and do that. So it should go to a lose scene. However, outside of our game scene, I'm going to create the lose scene now. So our lose scene is going to look like this. So once again, a string, and then a function of what's going to happen. And for this, I'm just going to pass through the score, or whatever this is. So I'm passing that through destructured. And then I am going to add, so once again, parenthesis, square brackets. I'm going to use the Kaboom method of text to pass through the score and the position of where I want to position it. Let's make the origin be center. So I'm going to pass through the string of center, and then let's position it. I can actually grab the whole width of the browser window and divide it by 2, and then grab the height as well and divide it by 2 as well. So now if I run the game, let's go ahead and lose. So amazing, we get 0 showing up in the middle of our screen because that is our current score, because we have no score. Great. So I think we've done everything we can on this level. Let's now try to add a new level. So let's do it. Great. So we have our map here. Now I need to add 2 maps. So for the first level, I want to go to this map. But if it's the second level, I need to go to, the second map. So const map, I'm going to rename to maps. And then this is going to be an array of arrays. So I'm going to have 2 levels at the moment. And I'm simply going to grab all of this and whack that in here. So there we go. And just get rid of that. So now, if I want to go into the first map, well, I'm going to grab the maps array, and whatever level we are on, this is why we started the level on 0. I'm going to go into the maps array, and if the level is 0, well, I'm going to grab the first map. So I can just simply pass through level, like so. And that will do the same thing. Okay? So that way I'm literally getting the first item of my maps array, which is that. And now let's make our second level. So I'm just going to paste this here and let's do it. So for my second level, I'm pretty much going to keep it the same. Let's perhaps get rid of some of these things, and I'm going to have lanterns on this side now, just to make things a little bit different. Let's get rid of these slices. Let's get rid of the lanterns. I'm just going to make these a straight wall. Now in here, I'm going to have some stairs, and then I'm also going to have a skeletal. Great. So now let's just change our level to be 1 for now. That is our second map. Amazing. So I actually want to get rid of this door too. So let's just get rid of that door like so. Great. Now, how do we get from level 1 to level 2? Well, I'm going to show you that now. So down here, I'm actually going to give my top door the tag of next level, just like so. And in here, so perhaps let's do it down here, I'm going to say if player overlaps with anything with the tag of next level, what do we want to happen? Let's write our function and find out. So if that happens, I want to go to the game scene again. So we are currently in the game scene, but I want to go to the scene again and pass through level. I'm just going to pass through level +1 to get to the next level. And then the score. So whatever the score label's current value is, I want to pass through. Okay? So let's check that out. Let's go back to level 0. Now let's try overlap with the door, making sure the slider is out the way first. And great. If I try, however, go here, nothing will happen. I need to add next level to these stairs too. This will, however, be problematic. So I'm going to show you why. So just let that collide again. Now, if I go to the stairs, everything breaks. That is because there is no level 3. So I can easily account for this by let's finding our level. And then I could say modulus maps length to make the levels loop over each other, okay? So this way it will loop and it will just be continuous for us. So now if I go here, go up the stairs, you will see it's looping. So that is just a quick fun fix for you. Let's carry on. I should really be moving this to the top of my game. So just to keep everything consistent, let's put this slicer speed up there too. I'm also going to define my skeletal speed while I am here. So I'm going to do that now. Let's say skeletal, so skeletal speed. I'm going to make it move quite slowly. So I'm going to say 60. Now, I'm going to actually put this back to level 1, just so we can start off on the second level each time. Great. So just where I move the slicer, I'm going to move my skeletal. So I'm going to use action again, and I'm going to pass through the string of skeletal this time. And well, what do I want to happen? Let's write a function and find out. So this time I'm going to pass through S for Skeletor. I'm going to grab Skeletor, I'm going to move him. And Skeletor again, let's make him move up and down this time. So I could just pass through a 0 and the Skeletor speed, because obviously x-axis, y-axis. But I also want my Skeletor to change direction. However, this time I want him to change direction randomly, and if he hits a wall. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Once again, I'm just going to, up here, give Skeletor a direction. So now, when we move Skeletor, we also need to multiply him by Skeletor's current direction. Okay, so we are doing that. Let's carry on. So now I'm going to actually give Skeletor a timer. I'm going to use the delta time. So delta time, if we look here, once again, I think I have gone through this before, but just one more time, it's the delta time since the last frame. So that's what I'm going to be using. And if the timer, so I of course need to give Skeletor a timer up here, so I can do that in the same object, timer. Let's start off with the timer being 0. If the timer is suddenly smaller than or equal to 0, I want to grab the direction and I just want to change it. So just like we did with the slicer, I'm literally changing it from a positive to a negative value, and if it's negative to a positive value. And then I want to get this Skeletor timer and randomly, so this is in the Kaboom method, to get a number randomly between 0 and 5. So now, or less than 5 should I say, now using rand, this will assign a new value to the timer. So essentially this is saying that our Skeletor will change direction randomly. So it will start off at 0. If it's 0, then the Skeletor will change direction, and then the timer is going to get another random number from 0 to 5, and the whole thing will start again. I'm also going to have to give Skeletor the tag of Skeletor, just like slicer, and let's click run. Okay, great. You can see he's changing direction. However, he is not changing direction if he hits a wall. Let's do that now. So I can actually reuse this right here. So I can reuse this and just say that if anything with the tag dangerous collides with a wall, so dangerous instead of slicer, here we go. They should change direction. This is pretty neat. We have a few more things that I would like to do, so let's carry on. The next thing I want to do is, of course, make sure that our hero can defeat the enemies. So I'm going to do so with a kaboom. Instead of a sword, I'm going to use a big kaboom to do this. So first off, I'm actually going to have to import that sprite. So I'm going to use load sprite again, and let's just call it Kaboom, as we are using the Kaboom.js environment. I thought that was quite fitting. And I'm just going to use this Kaboom that I made here. So I am going to, let's refresh this. I'm going to get the share links, copy this here. I'm just going to paste it as a string, like so. So we've got the Kaboom now. Now let's actually spawn a Kaboom. So I'm going to do this just under here. Now, I'm going to write a function called spawn Kaboom, just like so. And so going to be a simple function like this. And into it, I am going to... Well, actually, let's start off with adding what we want to add first if we spawn a Kaboom, because I want to add the sprite of, you guessed it, Kaboom. So at the moment, nothing will happen. That's because we need to assign it a position. And the position that I want to assign it is going to be the position of whatever I pass through into my spawn Kaboom function. Okay? So that is what I'm going to do. And then I'm just going to give it the tag of Kaboom, as we're going to need that later. And I'm actually going to save this as object for now, because we are going to have to destroy that in a bit. So there we go. Let's perhaps write that now. In Kaboom, we can use the method of wait, and we simply have to pass through a number, which is how many seconds we want to wait before something happens. So let's write our function to find out what that something is. So after 1 second, I want to destroy, so another Kaboom method, the object, which is my Kaboom object. Great. So we've got everything. We just need to use this function and pass through a position. So where can we do this? Well, I'm going to actually, so I'm going to say on key press spacebar. So this is how we would write spacebar. What do I want to happen? Let's write a function. So our function on the key press, I want to use this function that I have just written, like so. And of course, we need to pass something through. We need to pass through a position. So the position I am going to pass through is my player's position. So wherever my current player is. Okay? So I think that should work. Let's try it out. I'm going to press space. And there we go. Ooh, kaboom, 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 kaboom. This is looking pretty cool. However, let's actually position it a little bit further than our player. So where is our player? Where we add our player. So here we add our player. I'm just going to space this out so it's a bit more readable. So we're passing through a sprite, we're passing through a position. I also want to pass through an object that is the direction, and I'm just going to put him going right at the moment. And I can now use this in order to make our Kaboom object go out a certain way based on his direction. So based on my player's direction. And I would simply use the position that we are currently in, plus add. So we're going to add a little bit extra. So whatever the player's direction is, and scale it by, let's say, 48. Okay, so 48 pixels. If it's -1, it's going to be -48. If it's +1, it's going to be 48. So that should work. The only thing we need to do is actually assign a direction to our player each time he changes direction. So I'm going to go player dir, and then this is going to be vector2 0 1. This is going to be player direction 0 -1. And you've probably guessed it by now. This is going to be player direction 1 0, and this is going to be player direction -1 0. So let's check it out. Boom, boom. So you will see the Kaboom is now not on the link the player himself, but in front of him, depending on which direction he is. So great. One last thing, I promise, and that is adding a score if we destroy a skeleton. So I'm going to do that here. So I'm going to use collides again, and I'm going to pass through anything with the tag of Kaboom and anything with the tag of Skeletor. And I'm going to actually pass through K for Kaboom and the S for Skeletor this time, so we can use both. If both collide, well, I want to wait perhaps 1 second, And then what do I want to happen? So a function, well, I want to destroy the Kaboom. So destroy the Kaboom after 1 second, but I want to destroy the Skeletor immediately. So that is how I will do that. I can also grab the score label value and increment it using the increment operator by 1. And then also we can update the score label text to be the score label value, just so we can see it in our browsers as well. Okay, so that is good. And I can also add something fun like a cam shake. So let's add a cam shake of scale 4. So now let's try it out. Boom, great. So we are getting the cam shake, we are destroying Skeletor, and we are adding 1 to the score. And if we move on to the next level, so let's just see. This is all. Let's just try again. So let's just go boom. Whoa, that was a bit fast. Let's just try again. Boom. Amazing. Everything is looking great. So I hope you've enjoyed making this game of Zelda completely from scratch. Please do share your replits with us on freeCodeCamp. I would absolutely love to see how you have made this game your own, how you've taken it to the next level. Have you added more levels perhaps? Have you added more enemies? Have you done any other really cool stuff? I'd really like to know. So thanks so much again for coding with me. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and I'm sure I'll see you soon on freeCodeCamp. Bye. Now, we've been creating our games in Replit, and it is now time for me to show you how to publish your games in the Replit App Store too. So this is really simple. It's going to be a really short section. If you're really proud of your game and you want to share it and publish it, please head over to Replit/apps and simply click publish right here. Once you have clicked this, just click continue and then search for your REPL of choice. I'm going to choose Zelda, and I'm simply going to write a quick description. So a wonderful game of Zelda, making sure to spell that correctly. And then if I want to have a cover image, I of course can. I do think that is the best practice. I'm not going to show you how to do that because I think it is pretty self-explanatory. You can also add tags. So I've obviously got HTML in here. I can also put Kaboom if I wish. And then I can allow for comments if I feel comfortable to do that. And there we go. It was really that simple. Thanks so much again for coding with me. I hope you can share your games with us too. Can't wait to see them. Now, before you go, I just want to make a very quick section about how to perhaps use Kaboom in your own code editor of choice. So I'm going to do this in VS Code. I hope you can code along with me. Let's do it. So this section is really simple. It's going to take a few seconds. I'm simply going to head over Kaboom.js and I'm going to copy all of the code that you see right here. So it's simply this. It's just the code that I'm going to use for the quick start. I'm going to copy that and then just post it in the index.html. Now, if I open this up in my code editor of choice, so open up on the browser, you will see the oh hi mark text that we expected to see. Done. It was really that simple. And from then on, you are more than welcome to use all the other Kaboom.js methods to your disposal. Don't forget to check what version you are on so you can see the version here, as most stuff does change quite frequently. So make sure to refer to the documentation if you are currently on a newer version. You can also move out all of this into a separate JavaScript file. So I would do so like this. I would simply create a JavaScript file like so and just paste everything in there. So now if I look at the browser, everything works the same. So it was really that simple. Thanks so much for this short section, and I'll hope to see you soon. Okay, and that's it. Thank you so much for coding with me. I hope you really enjoyed this wonderful course on Kaboom.js, and I hope you can see how powerful of a tool it really is when it comes to game development. Thanks so much again, and I'll see you on freeCodeCamp soon.